E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guinois Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. I tell you, it's such a wonderful pleasure for us to be here with you today, and we got an exciting show with you. A guy that's also a fellow co-author with me in a book, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But we want to thank you for tuning in today to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. We're proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com, and also a very good friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Bill Heinrich. Bill is the author of The 7 Levels of Truth. I don't normally do the camera too well. There we go. The 7 Levels of Truth. This book here is designed for one thing. It's designed to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, as far as emotionally and spiritually strong, because there's only 2 emotions on planet Earth. There is, we all know, worry and stress and all that. That's all labeled under fear. And that's where most of us exist. And fear is a very negative environment. And then there's the other side, that's love. Fear and love cannot coexist any more than darkness and light. And if you let go of fear and you embrace the love, the abundance of love, that's what this book is all about. I'm sharing quite a bit about it because I believe in this book. It's a great book. It will help you in your hour of need. And Bill is a personal friend of mine. I'm going to be sharing some information about Bill Heinrich on the marquees. And also, too, I've got to welcome to the stage a good friend of mine, Joel Tewell. Let me just bring him up here. Joel, come on up here and join me here, brother. I'm sitting here taking up all the airtime.
Thank you, Jim Grant. I'm glad to be with you today.
Yeah. We met originally. The way we met was through a book called Turn Your Health Turnaround Story. You think since I'm in the book, I know what the title of the book is. But Joe and I, we're both authors in that, and we were both approached about telling our specific story. And to save time and to save you folks from getting bored, I won't share with you what my story is about. But that's how we met. And Joe, we've been trying to get Joe here on the TV show for some time with our schedules. His schedule's, over here, my schedule's over there. But we finally got him here today. We're going to talk about something he's very, very passionate about, which is finding health naturally. He's going to share a lot of information. But before we get this thing going here, Joel, would you be kind enough to share a little bit about who you are, your background, and anything you'd like, sir?
Well, absolutely, Jim. I thank you for the opportunity. Because, when you talk about passionate, I am so blessed to be able to wake up every day and do what I love to do. Mm-hmm. And that's all from the blessings from above. And yes. I love helping people feel their best, perform their best, execute their best. And that's really what it's all about. You had talked about the emotions of fear and love, and man, those are huge. That's a show within itself.
Oh, yeah.
I have been a fitness professional for 33 years. And when I talk about fitness professional, I've primarily trained athletes, from professional football players. I did a stint with the Kansas City Chiefs. I trained a professional hockey team, Kansas City Blades, and I trained all the Kansas City Chiefs cheerleaders in their off-season programs. So I've done this on a very professional, high level. But I also have done this on a level where I am today, which is really trying to help families
Mm-hmm.
become united, to become families that are connected. And I use the tools of nutrition and exercise as a medium to bring people together, to create common boundaries, to create, I call it momentum in life, and
Mm-hmm.
just create passion and love and joy and hope, things that we don't normally think exercise and food can bring.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited because before the show, I was thinking Joe was going to be talking a little bit about, the fitness side of it, doing all this stuff and all that. And he says,
Yeah.
wait a minute. He says, my calling in life, he says, been pulling at me and pulling at me and pulling at me was to go into nutritional things. And I said, well, let's do that. Let's talk about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to talk about today, you're going to hear it just the same time I'm going to hear it, because that's the way we like to do shows. We like to do things non-script, because during the show, there will be energy between me and Joe. There will be comments that will come to our mind, thoughts, and we'll share those with you because, and this is a principle around the world, this applies to you and everybody else. There just may be one person out there that needs to hear that comment. So when you make sure every comment you say is positive, okay? But that's so important in life. And Joe, I know you've been a trainer for all these years, and you've worked with the Kansas City Chiefs, the hockey team there, the cheerleaders, and just on a very high professional level. But being physically fit is one thing, but being nutritionally fit on the inside, that is something that everybody is seeking. How can I, you know, live a better life? How can I, in my case, how could I look younger and be better looking? Well, let's see. I could go for looking younger. I was young once. Better looking I've never had, so I don't have to worry about that one.
Well, I think if you really look at where we are, Jim, our
Mhm.
culture is completely upside down. I mean,
Yes.
it's completely, if you want to be healthy and fit and well, you got to be prepared to swim against the stream. You got to swim against the current, because our culture is upside down. Marketers and manufacturers only care about profitability and shelf life,
Hmm.
and getting athletes and movie stars and Disney characters to support their cause. And
Amen.
I think that if you look at the United States, this is something that really began to change the course of the way I coach, Jim, is the United States of America spent 5 times more money every year on healthcare than any other industrialized nation. That means we spend 5 times more
Hmm.
money on research and development of medicines and wellness. And we have all of the resources, from coaches to programs to clinics, to gyms to wellness to Whole Foods. We have an abundance of resources, Jim. But
Hmm.
yet, as a nation, the
Yeah.
United States is the most overweight, medicated, and sedentary nation of all. We have the highest mortality rates, and we're the most dependent upon prescription medication. So let me drive that.
Oh.
Jim, the United States is roughly pretty close, about 7% of the world's population,
Hmm.
but we consume 68% of the world's prescription drugs.
I hear you.
And
I
so
hear you.
our culture, our medicine is not healthcare, it's
Hmm.
sick care. And doctors go into medicine with the primary objective of loving humanity, to make humanity well. But then we get the drug companies, big pharma, that it's about the dollar.
Hmm.
And I know there, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but the facts are, Jim, when it comes to wellness, we can't guess anymore.
Yeah.
This is about intentionality.
You're exactly right. And I'd like to share something, if I may.
Sure.
Uh, Last year, of course, as Joe knows, I had a heart attack and had to have open heart surgery, 4 bypasses, and all that. Well, naturally, I'm going to come home with a bag full of medicine. And here recently, a few weeks, about a month ago, I had to go see my regular doctor. And he's looking at my chart there, because I'm in the system that they're in. And he says, "Are you taking your statins?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I mean, you got to take your statins." And I says, "Well, why?" He's not the cardiologist, he's just an MD. And I says, "Well, why is it that so many cardiologists now have left the religion?"
Yeah.
And these several cardiologists that I have watched have said, "We do not subscribe statins to our patients because of the long term side effects. And as a nicety to know, ladies and gentlemen, look at the advantages of the dandelion for the heart."
Yeah.
If you have a loved one out there that's suffered from coronary artery disease like I have, I had the widowmaker in my heart. I mean, it's only by the grace of God my switch didn't flip and cut my circuits off and I make the big escape. But my point being is that this one cardiologist was talking about the studies that was done on the dandelion plant, the entire plant, the weed that, everybody wonder where that started from. I know where it started from about we got to warn them people about get that weed out of their yard.
Yeah.
And the cardiologist named it. He said Big Pharma was the one that paid for the advertising because they wanted to, keep control. And, because what they want to do, they can control your mind, they can control your life, they can control your pocketbook. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not trying to, I can't blame them for wanting to make a profit, but I mean, come on now. But anyway, do your research on the dandelion, okay? Because this one cardiologist, I mean, he blew me away and he says, "Folks, I'm telling you, from the results I've seen from my patients, especially those who have, valve disease and all that," he says, "this thing's like a repair kit for your heart." And I'm going like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, it's,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I wanted to share that with you because that goes right in step with what Joel is talking about. Because, ladies and gentlemen, our health is our personal business. You have the right to be loved. You have the right to be healthy. And you have the right to do the research and make the right choices for you.
Yeah. To be
And
healthy isn't your right, Jim. It's your responsibility.
there you go. You
Yeah.
said it better than I did.
My clients all the time. It's not
Mhm.
your right. It's
Mhm.
it's your responsibility to
Yeah.
yourself, to your family,
Mhm.
to your community that you serve. Absolutely. That's the
Absolutely.
way you got to look at it.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely correct on that because if we don't take responsibility for ourselves, who will?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
In your travels, let me ask you this: when did nutrition start becoming uh, to the surface? As far, hey, did it begin in the very beginning when you were doing the fitness and all that, and the working on the physical body, the nutritional side of the value of importance? How did that all come up? And I
Uh,
know now that it's surpassed the physical because if you're lifting weights and eating a cheeseburger, you got a problem.
yeah, absolutely. But just kind of what you were touching on, Jim, is man, God has created herbs and plant
Mm,
and He's given us so much, everything that we need. It's the Garden of Eden until a man
yeah.
contaminated it.
Mhm.
Everything's out there, and I'm a big believer of that. But honestly, Jim,
Mm.
my um, inspiration to nutrition came from kind of an SOS in my life. Earlier, you had asked me to talk a little bit about my story,
Mhm.
and there's a part of my story that I'm not proud of, but to this day, I now realize there was purpose in it. God had purpose, and He created who I am today from
Mhm.
what I went through, and it gave me a different perception of
Mhm.
reality. And I was in an environment that I was exposed to lots of things from abuse to addiction
Mm.
to just a very undisciplined life. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Brothers or my siblings were exposed and using drugs regularly. And so I grew up in that environment, and we know the cliche, Jim, you're a product of your environment.
Yes.
And at the age of 12, I began drinking alcohol heavy, started using marijuana, and started using opioids on a regular basis. And Jim, I was going to 6th grade under the influence of marijuana almost daily.
Wow.
And so I started using these drugs heavy in my life. And there came a moment of clarity that I was at a party with these much older guys, and I was trying to impress much older guys doing things I shouldn't have been doing, barbiturates, alcohol. And this is at the age of 14, my body collapsed. And what I realized is when I needed help and I needed someone to show some responsibility and care for me, the influence I was with, the circle of people overdosing because they didn't want to be held accountable for a minor drinking or some kid overdosing. They bolted. And I laid in a field, Jim, and that's the first time in my life that I've ever called to God. And I didn't know who God was, but I believed in him. I just didn't think I was worthy. And
there you go.
That was the first time that I said a prayer that if you just get me through today, get me through tonight, I'll do better. And that moment scared life into me, Jim. It scared life into me. And so over the course of the next 2 to 3 days, I said, I'm going to make good on my promise. And what I did was, instead of drinking and doing drugs and searching for solutions through self-medication, I started doing running. I started lifting weights, and I started to use food as a source of my need. When I needed alcohol, I used vegetables. When I needed a drug, I would find ways to cook protein. I just felt like that all the people that I aspired to be, these healthy athletes, ate good and they thought good. And the people that I didn't want to be were doing drugs and drinking, and their food matched that mentality. It was terrible food. And I just really began to understand that this food made me feel I don't have a need anymore to medicate my body. I don't have a need anymore to contaminate my body. I'm wonderful. And it began to create a momentum. I talk about this momentum with my clients, that momentum begins mentally and then it becomes on a cellular level. You can start talking about, hey, I want to lose weight, Jim. I want to look better. I want to feel better. That's the mental state. And then you take action, but it's really when the cells, the organs, the tissues, the blood begins to start saying, I'm congruent with that goal, that you get this momentum. And that's what food is. Food is it's about life, Jim. It's about about healing. And we've made it as a culture about convenience, circumstance, emotional, and social.
Oh, yeah. And what's really interesting about food and all that, there is an acid in our vegetables called oxalic acid, OXALIC. And oxalic acid will attack abnormal cells like cancer and arthritis and so on and so forth. And a lot of people think a citric acid in our food is good, but it really isn't, because the citric acid put in the food is designed to prolong shelf life or to enhance the taste.
It's man-made, yes.
Yes. And if you look at the original formulation of it, where it came from, its roots began in etching metal. What does that tell you? Wow. And then during World War II, they discovered that this citric acid can be modified to be able to preserve food. And I tell people that have this disconnect about citric acid, I said, well, let me ask you a question. Does it sound reasonable to you that you can bake goods, put them in plastic, set them out there on the shelf, and they'd be good for 6 months to a year as far as a shelf life? I mean, does that sound natural to you? And it doesn't. And see, the citric acid is actually generated in your body naturally. And It's part of the third step of the digestive process called the Krebs cycle. Well, when you're ingesting good, wholesome vegetables, has the oxalic acid in it, and you're also, eating citric or drinking something that's got citric acid in it, you're pre-flushing your body
Yeah.
because the Krebs cycle flushes and cleanses all of the poisons and toxins out of your body. And I probably did a horrible job of explaining that, Joel. But the point being is that, like parsley has one of the highest contents of citric acid. And if you want to treat yourself, what they do whenever I had the heart attack, they give me nitroglycerin. Guess where it went? Under my tongue.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to get in my bloodstream, not my gut. So I'm saying, hey, and I do the same thing with dandelion. Put it under your tongue.
Yeah.
Let it soak.
Yeah.
Because you don't need it in your gut. You need it in your bloodstream. That's my
Yes.
point. And I hope I did that justice and made a good contribution to the show there, Joe. But, I'm going to let you.
You did. I
thank you,
love
sir.
that you're knowledgeable. And you know what? How did you get knowledgeable, Jim? You faced adversity. Your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's unfortunately, Jim,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people don't begin to start looking at their health and wellness until they have
Yeah.
that red line moment.
Yeah. And in many cases, this is another nicety to know about the heart specifically. I'm not going to talk about the tongue. I haven't mastered that one yet. But realistically, there was a report done back in 2009 by the University of UCLA out in California. And from the medical school, it said that 75% of the people who wound up in an ER like I did with a heart attack, they had no previous warning signs. My blood pressure was good. Every time I go to the doctor and get a physical, hey, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Yeah, okay, thank you much. 2 years before my heart attack, my bad cholesterol, LDL, was at 73. In the hospital, after I had my heart attack, guess what my bad cholesterol was? 96. Anything under 100 in the medical field, you're good to go.
Yeah.
And your blood pressure's good. So a dumb bunny like me, I'm thinking, well, if my blood pressure's good and my cholesterol levels are good, I'm good to go, right? But I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, when I had that heart attack, I had a heart attack at midnight on Halloween. I find humor in that for some reason. I don't know why. But when I had a heart attack that night on Halloween at midnight, I found out the hard way that my safety net had a hole in it. Trust me when I say this, that is no fun.
Yeah.
That is no fun. So it's kind of like the old proverb, sometimes where you stand depends on where you've been forced to sit. And, it's important. You can see right there that there were no warning signs. And for 75% of the people who suffer heart attacks, there's no warning signs, and heart disease is number one killer in the United States.
Yep.
So you got to be proactive, and, the information we share with you, be responsible for yourself. That's the bottom line. Ask questions. Because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a, dietitian, nothing like that. I'm just a guy that wound up in the ER, with a blood pressure of 190 over 111 when they checked me in.
Wow.
Yeah. And they said, you got a problem. I said, yeah, I don't feel too good either.
That's a good, I like that sense of humor, Jim.
Oh, yeah. You got to keep your sunny side up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But when it comes to, what you do, and you're going to be expanding more into the natural health industry, if I can say that, or portion. That's just calling you, isn't it?
It absolutely is, because, there's our bodies were designed so that if we really live the right way, and when I mean live the right way, that's such a vague way, but when you're, there are, for example, people in Okinawa, Japan, we've studied, and I've read a lot about that, that population, they've got hundreds of people that are there right now, living in their hundreds, and they're highly functional. These are people that live on a land that primarily eats sea vegetables and fish, and they live lives of labor and work and purpose. And these people live productive into their 80s, 90s, hundreds. And our bodies have the potential to heal themselves if we just kind of get out of our own way and steer away from what our culture is selling. And at the basis of that is that we need to wake up and quit thinking that everything is about comfort, personal comfort. We've just grown soft, Jim, as a society, as a culture. And you hear people talk about, well, I deserve this and I deserve that. And the things that they are deserving are the very things that are creating them to be in the health state that they don't desire.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely correct there.
So I really, more so now than ever. I mean, Jim, I've been training people since 1988, 89.
Wow.
And there was a time, Jim, when people would come in 20 years ago. It was rare to see someone medicated. And now I have people that are medicated 3 to 4 times, and some of them are on depression medications. You know, their doctor is giving them medications to get up and function, and then giving them medications to go to sleep.
You know, I worked with a guy back in the 70s, mid 70s. And I'm not going to mention his name. He's a good friend of mine, and we used to ride to work together. And he was a little bit older than I was. And he'd come by in the morning, pick me up. And he was just, because for some reason, he just believed that he needed to go see the doctor for everything. And he had a lot of stress. He was wound up, mainly where the stress was generated was in between his ears from static. Okay. I got to be honest with you. He created a lot of that in his own. But the funny thing was, excuse me, I remember this one morning, I looked over at him and I did a double take, and I looked at his eyes. His pupils were dilated. He had these real light blue eyes, and they looked like they had just been polished. I'm going like, are you okay? Yeah, man, I'm feeling good, man. I got up and I took some medication, and it didn't really pick me up to where I need to be. So I took a little bit more. And I said, well, just try to keep it under 100 on the way to on the way in, you know. And then at nighttime, he would have to take another type of medication. I don't know what kind of medication he was taking, because I wasn't interested in that. But he'd take medication in the morning to get him up and going, and at nighttime to slow him down, put him to sleep.
Yeah.
And I doubt very seriously if he's alive today, unless he changed his lifestyle. Because my goodness, that's
well, you know what, Jim, this medication, what we know, and I don't want to make the show all about fear of medication, but medication does, what we know is it really masks the root cause. It just treats symptoms, and it keeps people comfortable. I get it. But you know what it does is it ages us biologically. And many people that are listening to this right now, Jim, are 5 and 10 years older biologically than they are chronologically. That means the condition of their cells, their blood, their organs. If you know, when I was in college, I got to see an autopsy, and this gentleman died of a massive heart attack. And I got to tell you, that had a profound impact on me, Jim. They opened this man up, and they literally were shoveling off this liquid off of his organs. And I'm like, what is that, embalming fluid? And the professor said, no, that's subcutaneous fat. And they're literally removing, like, you ever see a canned ham? You got that white gel.
Yeah.
Pounds and pounds of it over his organs. And I'm like, wow, man. I mean, what a massive impact, you know, decisions have made, and it cut his time short. He didn't die because God took him away, Jim. He died because of his own actions.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It really woke me up, and to see what is going on internally. From somebody externally, we see their body and they're overweight, but internally, my goodness, the damage is not being revealed.
Mm, goodness gracious. I remember years ago, I had access through a friend of mine to medical information. And I'm not going to name who this very famous person was, but they performed an autopsy. And the autopsy reported now in the person's body, the individual had 45 pounds of fecal material. Now, we know ourselves when we go in for a colonoscopy, they got to, we're going to flush our bodies. We know that.
Yeah.
This individual had 45 pounds of fecal material. You think about that, carrying around that much weight. There's no way you can feel good. Plus, you're just lugged down.
Well, Jim, and not only that, think about what that's. I mean, this is a great direction you're going, because this is the stuff that really people don't talk about.
Yeah, I know.
The average person carries 12 to 28 pounds. It just depends on the study.
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff I've studied a lot of. And the average person's carrying 12 to 28 pounds. And we talk about fecal, it's literally food that is digested that's rotting.
Yes. Amen.
And when you have gut rot, think about what that's saying and what that's doing to your blood and your cells and your organs and your energy. Oh. And then we're putting more on top of it, and the body can't absorb it because the United States is the most overfed nation of all, but yet we remain the most malnourished.
Yeah.
And that's our food supply. And the foods that we're putting in, the body is working double time, harder than it's supposed to, because it can't absorb these metals and these preservatives. And so it puts our immune system at risk. It puts all of the systems of our body. It tears away our tissues. I mean, look at the orthopedic surgeries now, that you hip replacements, knee replacements. That is all because it isn't because you worked in a factory. It's because your body does not heal.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to list here a lady that was brought up in another show. Actually, it was brought up in a show about the power of the mind. It had nothing to do with health, but her name was Louise Hay, Hay, LouiseHay.com. And I just saw the note here. I still got it. She wrote a book on how you can heal your life. And she was talking about using the power of the mind. And see, the mind and the body's got to be in harmony. And we've had a good friend of ours on, Joel Peterson, with Dr. Clearfield and those good people out there in Reno, Nevada. And they talk about your gut health, your heart health, and your brain health have to be in perfect harmony. Your hormones. See, we think about hormones. We normally think of ladies, but men need hormones too. And and we don't normally think of it as men. We think we need, protein and, whatever. But realistically, your body has to be in perfect harmony. Your gut, your heart, and your brain. That is the foundation of all good health.
Yeah, it is. And matter of fact, because of our mindset, we create the hormones like cortisol that actually keep us from feeling our best, from recovering, from aging well. I mean, cortisol is a very powerful hormone that actually creates the need for dopamine. So we start craving sweets. We start craving things sweet and salt. We don't sleep. We have brain fog. And that's all hormonal. And that's created your mindset. The doctors approach that with medications when it's truly breathing, exercise, and mindset will absolutely bring hormonal levels normal. That takes an understanding.
Wow.
And you gotta really learn how to tap in to your inner being and that fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you written a book on this, Joe?
Well, No, I haven't, but it's in the works. And
There you go, brother, because you got a lot of great information out there that people really do truly need. And let me say this too, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what you do in life, your individual pathway in life, you become a specialist in many different areas, and you may not realize it because you don't give yourself enough credit. But just remember one thing, everybody does have a book in them. And we're
yeah,
not here, we're not here to, sell books or anything like that. But what my point is that your story, maybe it's overcoming poverty, maybe it's overcoming cancer, maybe it's overcoming abusive relationships because, some people come out of abusive relationships. Your story, your personality, you may communicate and be able to help one single person. And if that's the case, and it is, I can promise you that somewhere down the line, you're going to be able to touch and change. You'll probably change more, but just to say one person, how would that make you feel? And that's why it's so important for all of us to. And I've been a laggard. I'm in the rear. I'm way back in the rear of the caboose in the train because people have told me I should write a book and about some of the experiences in my life, and I've had this mental hang up about it, Joe, because how do you tell people, let me tell you about my life? Yeah, that's just not who I am. I
you're
just,
engaged, Jim. You're a now guy like I am. You're
yeah.
living it right now. You're using those experiences to help others.
Hmm.
And so you're
Yeah.
sitting down and writing about all that. You're using it right now.
Yeah.
Jim, you made me think here. You're a good pitcher, buddy. You got my brain ticking.
Oh,
You know that the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's 12
right.
steps. Everybody,
Mhm.
everybody knows pretty much who they are. But you
Mhm.
know what the 12th step
Uh-uh.
is to embrace and support someone in need. And
Mm.
that is the epitome of what wellness is. When you get to a point that your life begins to be no longer about yourself, but about helping others, serving others,
Mhm.
creating availability for the people you love,
Mhm.
that's health. Because there's a physical component to that, Jim.
Mhm.
You sure you can wake up and fake situations and act like you're all in and hey, this is a project, but deep down inside, truth be told, I'm
Mhm.
glad it's over. But when
Mhm.
you really wake up every day with enthusiasm about your potential and then
Mhm.
you have discipline to go make it happen, that is health.
Oh, yeah.
That's
After I
health.
had, yeah, I'm 74 now, so I was 73 and had my heart attack. What was one of the most common questions people would ask me? Oh, you going to retire now? And with my warped sense of humor, I'd say, well, I don't have any desire in my heart to try to win a blue ribbon down at the county fair for my tomatoes. And, I, I, um, I still cut my grass and, but I've got this guy that's doing it for me because I can pay him. And I said, I can cut grass. I live out here on 8.5 acres with my tractor, but that's not really what I want to do. I mean, I realize I appreciate people that love gardening and love cutting grass. To me, I cut grass because I have to. I go to the produce section and get my, gardening fruit and plants, things of this nature. But in return to what? And when you think about this show here and how many people we've touched, and to give you a classic example, we never script the show because we just decided we were going to talk about this particular topic. So about 5 minutes before we went live. So we do not script. And that is the most important thing because that way you can be authentic. And
Yeah.
that's what you need to be every moment of your life. Be authentic. And when you goof up, you guys that follow the show, you've seen me goof up here on the show. I mean, sometimes I'll get Donna crack. I'll say something that cracks up Donna. She'll get the snorting and all that. And there are some words I just cannot pronounce. And for some reason, I don't know why it is, but I tell people I've got a degree in being able to mispronounce words correctly the first time. I don't even have to study. It just comes to me natural. And but my point being is be authentic. When you make a mistake, own it. those of you you've seen me make a couple of mistakes, and over the all the broadcasting I do, I've had people like Joel the day I talk about, you're right. No, it's your responsibility. He corrected me. So that's the good thing. Own it. Let it go, because it's all about content. It's all about value. It's all about love. And I tell people all the time, Joe, and I think you'll like this. Scientists have proven that every man, woman, and child on planet Earth, we can trace our roots DNA-wise back to one mother, one father. And I tell people, and I'd like for you folks to think about this, those of you that haven't heard this before, think about the family dog, the heart, the love, the unconditional love that it demonstrates to its family members. What if we loved one another and looked at each other, even though we got different colored skin, even though we got different religions? So what? We should look at each other as we're all brothers and sisters from different mothers.
Yeah. Love it.
And love each other. And, sometimes you got to love somebody enough to let them go. In other words, just between us, don't tell anybody I said this. You love to see them in their car going the other way.
Yeah. Jim, I think this is a perfect opportunity for people listening that, there's people that are in their situation right now in their lives, and they're like, man, I do want to get healthy, and I'm not sure how to go about it. And our culture makes it so difficult for people to get healthy. You got to do this program. You got to eliminate this food group. You can't eat before noon. And we just made it this mess of marketing sabotage. And, ultimately, I think you said something really important, Jim, about owning it. And that's the first level to my program. And I call it demolition. And for me to get sober, for me to get off drugs, I needed to demolish that before I could move forward into becoming who I want to be. Because ultimately, people that use motivation out of what they don't want to be are the people that struggle the most. The people that really have discipline to become who they want to be are the ones that experience success in life. And so before you can ever really move on and get healthy and say, all right, this is the year 2023, you got to own and recognize what you did in 2022. What were the things that you've done that have created the body and mindset that you live in right now?
Yeah.
Because if you don't own that and you don't acknowledge that, then therefore you cannot move forward until you've dealt with the past. And,
Amen.
And that's huge, Jim. It's how I learned. I had to quit blaming my circumstances. I had to quit blaming my environment. I had to quit blaming my mom. I had to own it, because you know what? I'm making the decisions. Yeah, that happened to me, but I'm making the decisions. They're not. Yeah. And when I owned that, that became an empowerment in me, Jim.
Yes. Yeah.
And not only did I acknowledge and own my part in it, but I forgave them.
Oh, yeah.
Healed my heart.
That released all that negative energy.
Yep.
Because you're either transmitting negative energy or positive energy. You can't be transmitting both, any more than you can listen to an AM station on the radio and an FM station on the same radio at the same time. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I really really love what you said there about owning it and how you've come to grips with everything, because I heard a person say one time, and it's very fitting for me to share this with you, because I guess we've all been there one time or another. I have, and I'll be honest, a coward will run from themselves. A coward will not be willing to own it.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life, ladies and gentlemen, I was that weak. But the reason I share that with you is to say, hey, there might be someone out there who says, hey, I thought Jim had it all together. Well, no, I don't. Never have, never will,
Yeah.
But the important thing is I love myself enough to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst in Joe's life to love himself so much and to love others, to forgive others. And say, that does not define me. It does not own me. uh, I'm this. And when you do that, it's just a total release of negative energy. And when the negative energy leaves, guess what comes in? Positive energy.
Yes.
It really does. They can't coexist anymore, than the night and the dark can. But
That's
because the
right.
light, yeah,
There's a positive and negative end of the battery. And so
that's
I
right.
I agree with you, Jim. You can't have
Yeah.
both.
Doesn't work.
No.
You can't be in a dark room and have the light on at the same time.
That's
You know,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
And the one thing about hate and negative things like that, it's all physical. It doesn't exist in the world of love and abundance. And I'm going to put up, I put up a website here, Dr. Clearfield, I mentioned him earlier, and be sure and check with Dr. Clearfield. Visit their website. Joel Peterson's a good friend of mine, and I'm just doing this as a freebie for them. But here is a strong, strong message on YouTube. The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. I met Earl Nightingale when I was about 17. I knew who he was, but I was too young and too dumb, to be honest with you, to appreciate who he was. But Earl Nightingale talks about the strangest secret. You can have anything in your life that you want, and the universe cannot say no if it's in accordance with the energy. And if you're in a country that you don't have access to YouTube or anything like that, that's okay. Just go in your search engine, put in Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, and you can get verbatim by a PDF format of the presentation, because it's an MP3 on YouTube. It's just a photograph and the audio. It's not a video. So anyway, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And it's an eye opener. And it'll take some of you a little bit of the time to embrace some of the things he says. Because remember, your mind now, he uses this expression, it's like a farmer planting a field. The farmer can choose to plant corn or nightshade. Nightshade is a poison. And see, the field doesn't know the difference. The farmer puts seed in there. My job is to produce it. Your mind's the same way. If you put negative things up here, it's what it's going to bring out. That's the fruit. That's what's known as you reap what you sow. And a lot of truth in that.
A lot of physiology and biology there too.
Oh yeah, it really is. And it just amazes me how this is a type of show I love to put on every single time. Donna does too. When we're working together, we love these type of shows because I can feel the energy out there between Joel and myself and you folks out there in TV land, because the type of information that we're sharing with you, we can just feel the vibration there. And we feed off of each other too. We really do. That's the beauty of it. And that's why we don't script anything, because I tell people honestly, I'm not that smart. And I'm not.
You are smart, Jim. And you know what? You've said a lot today, and there's a lot of depth to things you're saying. I wish we had more time because.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll do this show again. We'll do another part on it.
I want to, and because man, our body's our energy, and once we break this thing down, so you can determine what energy you are, man, that's empowering. I mean, my goodness, Jim, that's when you begin to start understanding what I'm eating. Not, people literally make choices out of what's eating them, not what they're eating. And we need to really create that. I mean, it's really about creating that energy and changing our situations.
Amen.
On a cellular level through the mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're so correct on that, because the power of the mind. My goodness gracious, I tell the joke, and you folks out there watch the show a lot, you've heard me say this a lot, because it's a true story. I was a teenager in high school, and I think I was 11th grade maybe, and Walter Cronkite was the CBS anchor. And this one time I had just walked into the room when Walter Cronkite, he says, scientists have proven that we only use 10% of our brains. And mom and dad are sitting there because whatever Walter Cronkite said, if he said the birds were not going to sing tomorrow, they believe it. People just did, okay? And mom and dad are sitting there and they look at each other like, wow, we only use 10% of the brain. Then they looked at me and both of them got mad. And I thought, what'd I do? Then it dawned on me. They probably didn't think I wasn't using that much when I was in school.
Yeah.
But your brain is so powerful. It can give you comfort in your hour of need. It has a healing power to it. My goodness gracious.
Yeah,
The
brain and the gut, Jim.
yeah, don't, yeah. Yeah, don't junk. Yeah, I just got to say this. Don't junk it up with chemicals because your body is a processing center. It's not a recycling center. You don't put junk in and get stuff out.
Yeah.
And I forgive me for interrupting you, but
No.
I was just itching like a hound dog the mane. Just say that.
Well, I have 5 points I'd like to get off. If
Yes,
we
sir.
can.
Sure.
Just to summarize, because I got to go to this training session. But
yeah.
So for people that are leaving the show today saying, man, I this information is something I want to use, and I'm going to make this next year a big year for me. I want to get healthy. I got 5 steps. Okay. I want you to write these down, you guys that are listening. Number 1 is you got to establish a clear vision of what you want. Number 2 is you got to renew your mind daily. Every day is a new opportunity for you to create positive energy. You have to renew your mind. Number 3, understand that being healthy is an abnormal race. Number 4, you have to align yourself with the right people. Create a winning environment in you. Unfortunately, a lot of people would love to see you fail because they themselves are already miserable.
Yep.
And number 5 is you have to have an unwavering belief in your vision to obtain your goal, an unwavering belief.
And ladies and gentlemen, you see Joel's email there, Joe T. I keep calling him Joel. You know, I apologize for that. Joe's email, Joe T at wdmfitbody.com. Please email him that, and he'll be glad to send you information on those 5 things. And also, too, if you have any questions in regard to anything we've said, just call Joe. He's the complaint department on this. No, but realistically, if you have any questions about something that Joe shared with you, please get in touch with him and let him know, because he'd be more than happy to correspond with you and share good information with you, because the key to being happy in life is to be a blessing to others. That's priority. Never do anything for money, because money is the last thing that can make you rich, number 1. And number 2, we've talked to people about, doing some business things together with the Speaker's Pathway, and we put on training courses, and we ask people, what is it you want to do? I want to make money. Well, that is a pitiful answer.
Yeah.
It's the worst answer, because when does the money come? After you've done something, right?
Yeah.
So what is your passion in being a blessing to others? Whether you're doing it for goodwill, whether you're doing it for profit, if it's your business, that's fine. But what is your focus? What is your passion in your heart? Yeah. Why is the reason you get up in the morning, crank it up and get it going,
Yeah.
And if money is the answer, I feel sorry for you. You are robbing yourself and cheating yourself out of the true riches of life. And Joe, I know you got to go. Our time is almost gone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure and get in touch with Joe. And if you enjoyed the show, just send him an email and say, I really enjoyed what you shared with us. And that's Joe T at wdmfitbody.com. And Joe would really appreciate that. And like we say, we close. Be sure and love yourself first. Then you can love others. Most importantly, love yourself enough to forgive others and forgive yourself. Joe, thank you so much.
And Grant.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure. It's been well worth the wait for me. I can tell you that, brother.
Absolutely. See you later, Chief.
Okay. Take care now. Bye-bye, folks. Thanks for tuning in.